In this video, I'm going to try something a little new. I'm actually going to break down for you the different deck lists that we faced up against in Master Rank during our run up to Master Rank 1. Let me know in the comment section below if you think this would be interesting. I did use two decks for this run. I used Pure Kashtira for Master Rank 5 and 4, and then we switched back over to Floowandereeze. I'll go over the deck list that I used in the end, but videos will be linked in the description where I outline my matches. Now, as you can see from our match history, we absolutely were like super efficient. 85% win rate in our last 20 matches, and our matches from Master Rank 5 10 days ago are still on here, but we kind of breezed through all of Master Rank. And I think I have a video as well where I outlined my Diamond run, and it was like an 80-85% win rate in Diamond as well. So super efficient. The decks that we use proved to be pretty effective, but they're not perfect. So like I said, I'll go over those in the end. But let's go ahead and jump into looking at what we faced and what the meta was like in Master Rank during Season 20. Alright, so let's jump straight in. And I'm not going to be perfect on every deck analysis because I don't play every deck, but let me know in the comment section below what you disagree with, because I'm definitely not going to get everything perfect. So taking a look at the first deck, Exosister. I don't think this is a real meta contender, but I think it is good enough to get you to Master 1 if you did want to play it. Obviously, this deck is known for specifically countering graveyard-based decks, good against Tearlaments and things like that. Interesting that the opponent is opting to play Bestials, which synergize a little bit with the deck since you're the one initiating the graveyard disruption, forcing the opponent to like banish a card from their graveyard, or you're banishing it for them, sorry, or you can banish your own cards to trigger your Exosister card's effects. But I don't think I would play a Bestial package. Like the Regained and Beast, which they're not even playing Beast, which is interesting, would be really good normally, and they're only playing one call by, like, and then two Imperms, two even. Like, I don't like this like inconsistency stuff here. I like, you know, be straightforward, be consistent. But the reason I don't like the Bestial engine in this deck is because, well, this deck is inherently countering graveyard-based decks, right? You don't necessarily need Bestials to do that on top of this. Yes, I understand that these will trigger your graveyard effects, but the deck is already a little bricky and suffers from inconsistency issues, just like Floowandereeze, right, in a certain extent. So I can sympathize. Like, Martha is your best starter, or you need like two Exosisters, I think, in order to get started, or you need to see packs, right? And so when you're adding like Bestials into that, you're just asking to just like auto lose some matchups, right? Because if you go up against anything that's not light and dark based, now you're already on the back foot having to banish your own Exosister cards, which, like I said, it could work out, but given the fact that you're also fighting that uphill battle of I hope I don't brick when I open my hand, that's also a problem. Plus, again, you're forcing yourself to play like one of random odd cards that aren't searchable, so you have like increased inconsistency issues, in my opinion, on this deck list. Alright, moving on to the next one. It was a match that we lost, and I remember how I lost this because I got Zeused. I made a big misplay, but the opponent gammaed me, so, you know, Gamma is a thing. It's really powerful. So this is basically just pure Spright or Melffy Spright with Kashtira Fenrirs in them. Spright is still a decent deck. Definitely not as top tier as before because Kashtira complements Tearlaments better, believe it or not. Even though Kashtira counters Tearlaments, but Tearlaments is definitely on the decline, right? It's definitely not as powerful as it was, but I think also Spright suffers as well, just because the power level of the Kashtira cards do disrupt the Spright cards quite heavily, right? If you attempt to activate a monster effect, Fenrir is going to banish cards face down. The Unicorn rips apart your extra deck, which is very fragile as it is, and your Spright needs their extra deck. So you rip the one of Sprint, they lose an entire extension. If they go into Gigantic, you rip the other one. They have no follow-up if they aren't able to kill you, or if your board gets broken, which happens a lot in Spright actually. You know, you put up these boards and you think Spright looks so strong. I know I think that. You're backed up by hand traps. It just seems like in theory such a good deck, and it is, but I find that I'm able to break it with Floowandereeze. I've seen other people break it with other decks. You know, it gets broken by board breakers, by Dark Rulers, Super Polys, etc. So the board is susceptible, and because of that, when you combo that on top of like I'm playing a Fenrir, now I'm going to be, you know, being more aggressive and banishing your cards face down, I think this deck definitely went down a level. It's still a very, very good deck, but I do think you suffer from that. Going second, I think Spright does have enough with the Ash, the Imperms, and the Maxis to hold off the opponent if you can draw into your hand traps. So I think it's and the Fenrir is also as a going second card, right? So I think you have enough disruption going second that, you know, and going first, that the deck is well balanced. But Spright always has suffered from the existence of Maxi in the meta. You know, you get Maxied when you're using Spright. If you don't have the counter, your turn ends, right? Spright loses to Max C, and so that's one of the key weaknesses of the deck. Alright, let's take a look at the next matchup here, confirm this opponent's deck. So again, all of these matches in some capacity are on my channel. You can check the videos. This guy was going up against, we were going up against Spright. This guy is using Spright with Bestial, so he went for a 46 card pile. I do not recommend that. I think you need to stick as close to 40 as possible. Like, you're just throwing in traps at this point, and super polys. Like, there's no reason. Like, you should cut these board breaks and just focus on your hand traps. With Spright, you need to pick and choose. You want to play board breaks, you want to play hand traps, and it's definitely better with hand traps, in my opinion. As a Floowandereeze player, right, I play board breaks. Kashtira, we play board breaks, right, because the Kashtira cards are naturally board breaking cards. So I'm not a big fan of this list. But again, I'm not going to go over this too much because it's still like the exact same concept as the previous match. And we did make the proper play here and going for Diablosis first in this match. But as you can see, the opponent was not on a Zeus. So I think we end up ripping the Sprint, which, like I mentioned in the clip before, just shuts off an entire extension for the deck. So moving into the next one, again, we're still using pure Kashtira on these matches here. We went up against Kashtira Runick, and I really don't remember seeing any Runick cards, so I imagine that this opponent didn't open their Runick engine, and this is an unfortunate side effect of trying to run two engines together. Like, you should definitely be focusing more on the Runick side of this engine, because Runick is the dominant engine, over what the Kashtira engine is right now. And that's probably why we just end up mopping the floor with this guy. Again, no disrespect, I don't mean it that way, but it's just like, I don't remember seeing Runick cards, and so you probably only opened Kashtira cards, and I just, like, with my own Kashtira deck, probably going second, just blasted through whatever you set up because it was easy enough to do that. The Runick engine is very powerful. This combination, I think, is fairly good, but I think you need to focus way more on the Runick cards and much less on the Kashtira cards if you're going to play this build. Alright, looking at the next list, we're up against Tearlament, Adventure, Kashtira. So this is a very interesting list. Off the top of my head, I can't just think about what you cut from the standard Tearlament list in order to make this work. But I am a big fan. I think Tearlament's Kashtira, which is like the double unicorn, the double Fenrir, triple unicorn, one birth with the Tearlament package is probably the strongest deck in the game right now. I would not be playing the adventure package. It just seems like extra clutter in the deck that you don't need. And I think you definitely want to be playing 3 Super Poly. That's the thing that jumps out at me right away. Super Poly is literally like the best board break that Tearlament can play. It is so good, and it's good against like almost every single deck too. It's good against Floowandereeze, it beats Apex and Empin, it beats obviously other Tearlament builds, it beats Branded, it beats Bestial Dragonlink. Like, you know, Super Poly away your Borreland and your Borreload Savage. I'm pretty sure you can do that, right? Because they're both dark. And, you know, your opponent can't respond to it. Like, GG's with one card, you know? Like, you know, Super Poly away your Seal, I guess. Like, you know, with something else. Like, it's just, it's crazy. You definitely want to be playing Super Poly, and so that's my 2 cents. Cut Adventure, put in Super Polys. This deck is the best deck in the game. Alright, next up on the list in Master 4. So we were probably still on pure Kashtira, and this person is on Swordsoul. I really like Swordsoul, however, this guy is not playing any Tenyis, and this is definitely not the way you want to play Swordsoul, so very interesting. This is the match too. I think people commented, like, the guy put me under Shifter, went into Moye, and then synchroed into Dragite, either not knowing or not realizing or forgetting that they were under Shifter. But this, you need a water monster in your graveyard to use the negate, and so your Moye got banished because you put yourself under your own Shifter. So yeah, you went into this and it couldn't do anything because he knew I had like Floowandereeze trap card, so I guess he went into this to try to negate trap, but yeah, it didn't because you had no water monster. So like I said, I'm a huge fan of Swordsoul, but you definitely don't want to be playing it with like these random cards. Like, why is there 2 of this in here? Why are you running 2 Blackout? Lightning Storms are okay. The one random Ghost Bell is odd. Why are you running Albaz? Like, what is this? Just run Tenyis. Like, the deck is proven, consistent, very, very strong, very solid, and you're missing Protos, right? So you need Protos. So don't run a list like this, but Swordsoul, I think, is a very, very top deck. Next up, we've got the evolution of Max C in Max D. So I think this was our rank up game. This is for higher Runick Sprites, so very expensive to build, a lot of ultra rares, but a very effective deck. However, it still suffers from imperming against Hugin, shutting down you getting your fountain if you don't hard draw fountain or get a tip to search it with. However, you can still play through the Spright and or for hire engines. So it's not necessarily end of the world like it is against other like focused Runick builds where you definitely need the Hugin to resolve to get your fountain. When this deck gets going though, it's almost it's impossible to stop, let's be real. There's nothing you're really going to do against it. The draw 6 essentially with the full go is absolutely broken. And it is probably the best deck that you can play Runick and Spright in. I think this is stronger than just like Melffy Spright. I think it's stronger than like other Runick variants. This deck like works very, very well together once you know your combo lines. The Donner extension when this card came out was just insane. So yeah, you got a lot of follow-up. You've got all the disruption that you could possibly need. You got spell and trap removal. You've got special summoned destruction in the where is it? Flashing Fire. You've got, you know, battle and effect destruction protection. You've got negates. Again, you do have to see these cards, but you know you're gonna see them when you're drawing 6 off of like the for hire, Folgo, and the Fountain, right? So yeah, like I said, once this gets going, you're golden. It does lose to Max C still, right? And you're not playing your called buys or your nobleman. I keep calling it nobleman, but it's crossout designator. You're only playing Ash as your Max C counter. So if you get Max C'd and you don't have the Ash to negate, do you really want to try to extend and give your opponent a bunch of draws? Maybe you think you can give them a lot of draws and then deck them out with the Runick stuff, but they're likely OTKing you if you don't beat them like within turn 1 and 2, right? So keep that in mind.